Well, hello, and welcome to a brand new channel, Living with Autism. My name is Michael, and I am autistic. And I've had those two sentences literally for months, and I've spent hours and hours of thinking, of talking, of rehearsing in my head what I would say, of tears at times, trying to figure out how to take the next step. What do I talk about? In the list of so many topics, of so many questions people might have, of so many directions to go, what do I do? And this has really been the hardest thing probably, or right up there with some of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. But at some point, you just have to push record. And so here we are, and I've pushed record. And today, all those other topics, we might get to them at some point. We might talk about those things. We might answer some of those questions. But today I want to give you a brief introduction to who I am and what this channel, Living with Autism, is all about. Well, the first thing I want to let you know, you might notice, is that this channel is going to be done with minimal editing. Yeah, I'll probably do some color grading. Hopefully I do some audio, hope to improve the audio. But it's going to be as uncut as I can do it, as much like a live video maybe as I can do it. And I have notes here, I have some ideas to make sure I'm not just wandering and rambling, but I want this to be authentic. So I might make a mistake, stumble over some words, and keep going. You might hear some dogs barking. Our neighbors have a German Shepherd that likes to bark a lot. You might hear some cars go by. But I want this to be authentic. And so my name is Michael, as I said. I'm 46 years old, and I am autistic, I would say, clinical diagnosis of level 1 autistic spectrum disorder. And that is maybe more commonly referred to as, people might say, on the spectrum. I would refer to it as high functioning autism. It used to be called Asperger syndrome, but somewhere recently the medical profession decided that it was better to say that people like me have a level 1 disorder than to say that we have a syndrome. And anyway, that's where we are. So that's me. I'm 46 years old. I was diagnosed a little under a year and a half ago at 45. And so this is my journey. And so what is this channel, Living with Autism? Why is it called Living with Autism? What is this about? Well, first of all, it's for people like me, right? I'm living with autism. And so it's to tell you about me. It's to tell you about who I am so that other autistics like me maybe feel like they're not alone. Maybe they can relate to something. Maybe they hear something that I have had success in or failure in, and it helps give them some information, some ideas on how they should proceed in their lives. So that's the first thing. The second purpose is that there are other people that are living with autism, and those are our friends, our family members, our loved ones. Some autistics, like me, are married. Some are not. But we hopefully have friends and family and loved ones, and so those close to us are facing some of the challenges as we struggle at times in life. They can struggle with us. Now, what does that mean? I'm not broken. But I do struggle at times. Here's an example of a struggle that autistics often face. I saw a statistic that in 2017, that 85% of college graduates who were impacted by autism were unemployed. 35% of 18-year-olds who are autistic go to college, but 85% of college graduates impacted by autism are unemployed. That's a staggering number. The unemployment rate at that time was 4.5%. Another statistic that said that that's a current thing. They were currently unemployed. Another statistic said that between the ages of 21 and 25, young adults, nearly 99% of Americans between the ages of 21 and 25 hold a job at some point, a paid job during that time period. That number goes down for people with emotional disabilities. That number was 91%. For people with intellectual disabilities, not learning disabilities, but intellectual disabilities, that number was 74%. But for autistics, the number was only 58%. Only 58% of young adults held a paid job at any point between the ages of 21 and 25. And so as we struggle with these kinds of things, it impacts the people around us. Now, I'm married. For much of my life, I've had a job. But just because I might look externally different than someone who's still living at home, who still maybe works part-time or doesn't have a job, who has these struggles, doesn't mean they haven't impacted my life. My wife, my kids can tell you about the impact these things have had on my life. And so I want to be an encouragement and a support and be a community where these people are getting information, they're getting help, they're learning from our successes, from our failures. And I hope to be able to share more about my wife and my kids and hopefully hear directly from them at some time. So they're also living with autism. That's what this channel is about. But there's a third group that's also living with autism, and that's everyone around you. We're all living with autism because there's autism in our society. The estimates are somewhere in the neighborhood of 2% of people are autistic. For older people, not old necessarily, but not young adults or kids, people my age in their 30s, 40s, 50s, that is going to be lower because the way we look at autism, the way we diagnose it has changed very much. But many people believe, and I'm among them, that it's just a difference in diagnosis. And so 2% of the people are autistic, some estimate like that. So even if you're not one of those people, even if you're not directly living with a close friend or loved one is autistic, they are around you. People are around you, and we interact with each other. And so I would like to raise awareness of these things because it can be a struggle to communicate between autistics and non-autistics. If you've heard of what's called a chain diffusion, I believe is the name, a diffusion chain, sorry, the game of telephone in the United Kingdom and Australia, it's actually called kind of a weird name, Chinese Whispers. But it's a game where, one person starts off and they give some information, and there's a circle here, I imagine, and they tell it to the next person and the next person and the next person, and it comes around. And you start off, and when you played it in grade school, you said something silly, and when it came to the end, normally the person said something entirely different. And so there's a challenge in sharing the information and having it heard. Well, when they studied this, they studied it with three groups. They had groups of autistics, they had groups of non-autistics, and they had mixed groups where they were mixed. An autistic person would talk to a non-autistic person, then to another autistic person, and so on. And they found that it was very similar, the ability to transmit information between autistics and non-autistics. If you look at the chart, you'll actually see that autistics were actually a little bit better at communicating information between themselves. They understood each other better. It's not about who's better at communicating, it's about understanding each other. But where this process broke down pretty quickly was when an autistic and a non-autistic person were sharing information. And so very quickly, that was the challenge that came up. And so in our society where 2% of the people are autistic, you're probably going to face them at the supermarket, at your job, who knows where, when we're not all confined to quarters, so to speak, when we're hanging out at parks, at restaurants, at these things, we're going to have encounters with people. And so to raise awareness for people that autism exists, and how, as autistics, we can communicate with non-autistics, and how, as non-autistics, we can understand and communicate as well. And so that's what this channel is about, and why it's called Living with Autism. But there's a fourth purpose, and this just came up yesterday. I was reading some stories on ESPN.com, and it was the perfect intersection of two things that I love, sports and human interest. And so this is a story about athletes and things, and the struggles that they had faced. The first story I read was about a guy with chronic pain. The second story was about a football player who lost a couple of his fingers in a fireworks accident, and a reporter who also had an accident as a child, and her middle finger is not normal, so to speak. The third story was about a former Major League Baseball pitcher and his struggles with drug and with substance abuse, with alcohol abuse. And finally, the fourth story that I read was about a baseball player who tried to kill himself. He shot himself, survived, lived for 20 hours without medical attention before he decided he wanted to live, called 911, and the story goes from there. And so these stories, man, they really impacted me, and I related to each and every one. Well, I've never struggled with chronic pain. I've never struggled with substance abuse. I have all of my fingers and toes. I have no struggles with, I've never dealt with amputations, and I've never attempted suicide. So why is it that I related to these things? Well, you see, the guy with chronic pain, I knew what it was like to sit and watch the world happen because you couldn't get yourself to go and participate in it. In his case, because of pain. In my case, because it's just hard, and sometimes I feel I can't do it. And so I watch as my family experiences life sometimes. For the guy with substance abuse, I understood his struggles to deal with the world, the way he looks at things. The people with amputation of their fingers and toes, I understood and recognized how it feels like to be scared to share who you are with others. The guy who attempted suicide, I knew what it was like I shared the feelings of second guessing everything that you did. No, I didn't do it in the baseball arena. I've never played baseball past Little League, but there was a connection, a human connection, and I shared that with them. And so because of that, it helped me. And it's part of what inspired me today to start to finally push that record button and get going on this, the hardest thing perhaps that I've ever had to do in my life. And so that's the fourth thing that I want. I want this to be a source of encouragement to anybody who may be struggling with anything. I have friends who are bipolar. I have friends who have a number of different challenges. And I have friends who have no clinical diagnosis of things, but they still struggle. How many of us still struggle as we feel out of place? How many of us struggle with emotions? How many of us struggle to reveal who we truly are? How many of us struggle sometimes to go and do things that we watch other people do and we want to do, but we feel we can't? So these are things in life that we share. We have shared human experiences. I'm different and you're different. But the world is not divided into autistics and non-autistics, or bipolar and non-bipolar, or anything else. We all share a life where life is a challenge. And so it is my hope, it is my prayer, that at some point a community even develops where we can encourage, challenge, help each other. Our successes, our failures, our victories, our defeats can be an encouragement to each other. And so, starting with this video, we will be having videos that come out every Monday and every Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 11 a.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, GMT, so you can adjust accordingly when we will come out. But there will be videos right here on this channel, Living with Autism, twice a week, Mondays and Fridays, 2 p.m. Eastern. I hope they are an encouragement and a blessing to you, because I know that sharing is a blessing to me. But I don't want this channel to be about what I get out of it. I want this channel where we can encourage each other. Well, I hope I answered your questions. I hope that you got something out of this. I hope that in some way this video was a blessing to your life. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Until then, take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.